Hello friends, let us continue our discussion on distinguishing minerals as a category of material that are distinct from other materials that are available on the surface of the earth. So this is what we have been doing in the past few lectures. Now we found that one of the distinguishing features is that the minerals or the atomic arrangements or the arrangement of the fundamental entities that constitute a mineral exhibit a long range regular arrangement. So one of the distinguishing features is long range regular arrangement of the fundamental entities. So we have seen or rather quantified what a long range is. In the previous lecture we saw what a regular arrangement means in 2 dimension. So before proceeding further, building on this understanding of what a regular arrangement is in 2 dimension and extending it to a 3-dimensional regular arrangement, before doing that, let us consider or dwell some more time in the regular arrangement in 2 dimension to see what other features that regular arrangement of a fundamental entities exhibit. So in order to do that, first let us just do a brief recapitulation of what we considered in the previous lecture. So we saw that minerals as its distinguishing features exhibit a long range regular arrangement of the atoms. When you have a material that exhibits a long range regular arrangement of the fundamental entities, we refer to them as crystals. So crystals, they categorize any material wherein you have a long range regular arrangement of its fundamental entities. Now if there is no long range regular arrangement, we refer to them as amorphous materials. And we saw if a material that has the distinguishing features of a mineral or characteristic features of a mineral, like it should be an inorganic compound that is available in nature, it has all the other features except for that it does not exhibit long range regular arrangement. We saw such materials are amorphous and we refer to amorphous minerals as mineraloids. So this is something that we considered in the previous lecture. Now in addition to that, we saw in a 2 dimension the regular arrangement of the fundamental entities can be expressed by considering a position of the atoms and 2 different vectors. So one way of looking at the regular arrangement is you can start from a given position of the atoms and establish how these atoms or entities are arranged in a given crystal. So let me repeat, crystals are materials where the fundamental entities are regularly arranged. Now this regular arrangement means you can start from a given entity and then you can establish or you can theoretically postulate where the rest of the atoms can be found. So when you try to do that, or for doing that, we need 2 vectors, and since vectors have both magnitude and directions, the magnitude can be ascertained from the vector itself. In order to know the direction of these vectors, we use angles between them. So the angle between them points us to the direction the vectors, given vector points or given vector directs itself or orients itself with respect to the other. So we have 2 vectors. Instead of talking about its direction, its corresponding direction alone, when we talk about its direction in relation to the other, then we can make use of the angle between them. So by considering 2 vectors, A and B vector, and the angle between them, we are now able, or we are in a position to consider both its magnitude and its direction through the angle theta in relation to one vector. So the direction of B can be discussed in relation to vector A through the angle theta. Now we have considered in the previous lectures there are different possibilities for these vectors to assume magnitude and direction. So one of the possibility is that the magnitude of these vectors are equal and the angle between them is 90 degree. So in such a case, if you begin with an initial atom, then assuming that the magnitude of the vectors are equal, then you end up with an atomic arrangement or arrangement of a fundamental entity of this form. So this we refer to as a square crystal. So the magnitude of the vectors are equal and angle between them are 90 degrees. So this we refer to as the square crystal because this particular arrangement of the atoms, local arrangement of the atom, it has all the characteristic features of the atoms or arrangement of the fundamental entities all through the crystals, and the morphology or the shape it adapts is in the form of square, and that is why we refer to the crystals that assume or that adapt such arrangement as square crystals. So the vector's magnitude should be equal and the angle between them should be 90 degrees, and when you assume that configuration and place the entities or the atoms accordingly, you will end up with a regular arrangement of the atoms, and this regular arrangement of the atoms is represented by these 4 atoms here, and since they assume a morphology of the square, we refer to them as the square crystals. So these are square crystals. Now, since we are confined or restricting ourselves to 2 dimension, the overall arrangement, this setup, because we are talking in purely a theoretical sense, this setup is referred to as the lattice plane or lattice mesh. So again, since we are talking in terms of 2 dimension, this is referred to as the lattice plane or lattice mesh, and this configuration here, this 4 atoms here, that is reflective of the entire arrangement of the atoms in this crystal, in this square crystal. We refer to that as unit mesh. So we know now what is lattice mesh, lattice plane, unit mesh, and we now are able to distinguish the square crystal from the rest. Now it is also possible for us to play around with this configuration or with this relation between the vectors. For instance, we can change the relation to, again we can keep the magnitude of the vectors to be equal, and or rather we can disturb or compromise the magnitude, the equivalence of the magnitude of the vector, and assume or continue to assume that the angle is 90 degrees. In that case, we would end up with an arrangement of this form. So now the magnitudes of the vectors are not equal, but the angle still remains to be 90 degrees. So we would end up with an arrangement such as this. This we refer to as the rectangular crystal, and again the unit mesh here is this 4 atoms. Now we also saw that, so this is the characteristic feature, or this is the distinguishing features of the rectangular crystal when compared to the square crystal. When compared to square crystal, the magnitude of the vectors that enable us to plot, or that enable us to identify the positions of the atom with respect to one position, these vectors are not equal in magnitude, but still the angle between them is 90 degrees. Now in this setup, having assumed that the magnitude of the vectors are not equal and the angle between them is 90 degrees, now we can proceed to the next configuration by compromising on this aspect here. If we compromise on this aspect, that is the angle between them is 90 degrees to theta less than 90 degrees, to a theta less than 90 degrees, but to a specific angle. Of course, this angle is less than 90 degrees. So less than 90 degree, you can have different angles, but if you confine yourself to a specific angle, then we saw that such a condition. So this and this condition, that is inequality in the magnitude of the vector and the angle between them less than 90 degrees, would render a different rectangular crystal. We saw that this rectangular crystal is a bit complicated or complex when compared to this one. So therefore, we refer to this as a primitive rectangular crystal, and the other one wherein you have an inequality in the magnitude of the vectors and the angle between them is like 90 degrees, we refer to them as complex, or more accurately we can refer to that as centered rectangular arrangement or centered rectangular crystal. So what this essentially means is the configuration, the local arrangement of the atoms, the unit mesh of this centered rectangular arrangement is similar to that of the rectangular arrangement. You have the inequality in the magnitude of these vectors. However, in this configuration, you would have an entity, a fundamental entity, an atom or an ion that is present in the center of the unit mesh. So what we essentially have is, when you assume the angle between the vector is less than 90 degree and a specific angle, it does not vary with atom to atom, you have a specific angle, and in that case your vectors will be of this form. So if you have to plot the vectors, so these will be your vectors and the angle between them is 90 degrees, and when we keep on proceeding that and we keep on doing that and repeating this operation for all the atoms that are present, we would end up with a configuration like this, except for there will be an atom or an entity in the center, and this was what we referred to as the complex or centered rectangular mesh. So what essentially we have changed is just we have reduced the angle between the two vectors. Now when we increase the angle between the two vectors, so instead of considering theta that is less than 90, if we increase the angle between the two vectors, if we assume theta is greater than 90 degrees, so what we end up with is a configuration such as this, where we begin with an atom, and here in addition to this we assume that the magnitude are not equal. So in that case we begin with an atom, and then since the theta is 90 degrees, it means we have a vector that is pointing in this direction, and now the position of the other atoms, the neighboring atoms, will be in this form. So ultimately what you would end up with is a parallelogram like crystal. So you will have a parallelogram like arrangement of the atom in this particular crystal, which is characterized by this relation here. So we have seen an equal magnitude of the vectors, and the angle between them is less than 90, equal to 90 and greater than 90. And now here we also saw in the previous lecture that if theta is 120, and also it fulfills this condition of the unequal magnitude of, or rather if we compromise on the unequal magnitude and impose an equal magnitude of the vector. So these two, rather the magnitude of these two vectors are equal, then in such a case you would end up with, so the angle is definite, it is 120 degree, and the magnitude of the vectors are equal. So in such a case we would end up with hexagonal crystals or hexagonal arrangement of the entities. So essentially what we find is we can begin in a regular arrangement of the atoms in a crystal, since crystal, or rather in a mineral is a crystal which is characterized by the regular arrangement or a long range regular arrangement of the atom. It is possible for us to begin with a given atom, and then replicating or repeating a given operation, we will be able to know or predict what will be the positions of the atoms physically in a given crystal. So without looking into or without doing any experiments, any X-ray study or any microscopic observation, without doing anything, starting from a given point, that point could be the edge of the crystal, starting from that point, placing an atom there, we will be able to identify the position of all the atoms or ions in the given crystal. So we will be able to predict what will be the positions of all the atoms and ions in a given crystal by repeating a particular operation that has to do with two vectors, and these two vectors, they have a definite magnitude and the angle between them, and by playing around with these vectors we will be able to identify the position of the atoms in a given mineral. So if the mineral is of hexagonal configuration, if the atoms in the minerals are arranged in hexagonal manner, then by imposing this condition here we will be able to know the positions of all the atoms. If the minerals or the atoms in the minerals are arranged in a parallelogram like fashion, then using this condition we will be able to identify positions of all the atoms without even looking closer into the atomic arrangements within a given mineral. So this is what it means to have the regular arrangement of the atoms, long range regular arrangement of the atoms. Without getting into or without knowing or without viewing it physically, we will be able to predict or know the positions of the atoms if we know how the atoms are if we are able to categorize a given mineral, if we are able to categorize a given mineral as a square mineral, if we are able to categorize a mineral particularly in 2 dimension, we are talking in terms of 2 dimension. Before the end of the lecture, we will go to 3 dimension just to just to extend our understanding. But if we know the nature of this crystal, if it is a square crystal, if it is a primitive rectangular crystal, if it is a centered rectangular crystal, if we know that, then starting from a given point, we will be able to ascertain, we will be able to determine the position of the individual independent entities which are arranged and how they are arranged in the mineral. So that is what it means to be long range regular arrangement of the atoms. Now when we have long range regular arrangement of the atoms, there are some other features that can be observed. So when we say that a mineral is a crystal, there are other features that are associated with it. So when we say in a mineral, the entities are regularly arranged in a long range order, it is also possible for us to observe other features. It's possible for us to talk about other features. So one of such features, one of such distinguishing features of a mineral is it exhibits symmetry. Because in a mineral, the fundamental entities, atoms or ions, they are regularly arranged in the long range order, it exhibits a symmetry. So there are different forms of symmetry that one can observe in a crystal or one can observe in a mineral because we have a long range arrangement of the atoms. We will here in this context, we will discuss few symmetries. Not all of it, but few symmetries that are required for our understanding, that are fundamental for our understanding of what it means to have a long range arrangement of the atoms. So let me repeat, this symmetry is only possible because we have long range regular arrangement of the atoms. So minerals, they are crystals because they have long range regular arrangement of the atoms. Because of this regular arrangement, it is possible for us to observe some symmetry in the minerals. It is possible for us to observe some symmetry in the arrangement of the fundamental entities, atoms or ions in the minerals. So what we mean by symmetry? So one of the symmetry that is easy for us to understand is the translation symmetry. So translation symmetry. So what do we mean by that? So translation symmetry means if you take a local arrangement of the atoms and if we repeat it all through the volume. For instance, let us again restrict ourselves to 2 dimension. If you consider a local arrangement of the atoms, which are often referred to as motif. Motif is nothing but a local arrangement of the atoms. So if you take a local arrangement of the atoms, then you keep on repeating it over a plane. Ultimately, you should end up with a plane lattice. Ultimately, you should end up with the arrangement of the atoms in that given plane. So if that is possible, then it means that that particular arrangement shows translation symmetry. Let me repeat. An arrangement of atoms shows translation symmetry when you consider its arrangement and you choose a particular arrangement, a local arrangement of the atoms, then you keep on repeating it and ultimately you will establish the entire symmetry. So when you are able to do that, then it means the atom exhibits translation symmetry. Let us try an example. So let us consider an arrangement of atoms something like this. So we are not now talking about any vectors or any angle between the vectors, but we are now seeing an arrangement of the atoms. Now we want to see if this arrangement exhibits a translation symmetry or not. So in order to do that, let us consider a motif, a local arrangement of the atoms. So let me extend this lattice plane. So this is the lattice plane that we have, and we want to see if this lattice plane exhibit a translation symmetry or not. In order to do that, let us consider a local arrangement. So let us assume that this is the local arrangement of the atoms. Now the translation symmetry is possible when we repeat this local arrangement or when we translate this local arrangement and we are able to establish the overall lattice plane. When we are able to do that, then it means this particular arrangement of the atoms exhibit translation symmetry. So what is meant by translation symmetry is we are going to repeat this arrangement. So for repeating, let me use a different color. So you take this and you repeat it. So we are repeating this particular arrangement, that is motif here, and you get this sort of an arrangement. You keep on doing this. When you repeat it, you see the repetition, it overlaps with the lattice points. So individual positions of the atoms are we referred to as the lattice points. Now when we repeat it, you see that the repetition overlaps with the existing position of the atoms. So this is what we refer to as the translation symmetry. So whenever we have a regular long range arrangement of the atoms, and these long range arrangement of the atoms have a definite unit cell or unit mesh, then this unit mesh, by repeating itself, we are able to establish the overall lattice plane, and this is what we mean by translation symmetry. So by repeating a motif, by repeating a local arrangement of the atoms, if we are able to establish the entire lattice plane, the entire arrangement of the atoms in a crystal, then that is what we refer to it as the translation symmetry. So this is one of the symmetry that we observe in the minerals. So translation symmetry is possible because the minerals, the entities, the fundamental entities are regularly arranged. So what is the meaning of translation symmetry? It means you consider a local arrangement of the atoms, a motif, you keep on repeating it all through the volume. If in 2 dimension, you keep on repeating it in 2 dimension, and ultimately what you would end up with is the regular arrangement of the atom. So we saw in the while constructing the regular arrangement, we considered just 2 vectors and the angle between them, and we keep on repeating that operation in order to establish the lattice plane. However, if you want to talk about translation symmetry, if you know that a material or a mineral exhibits a translation symmetry, you can just consider as unit mesh and then keep on repeating it, keep on translating it all through the volume, and that will also render you the entire lattice plane. So to know the arrangement of the atoms in a given crystals, there are 2 ways. One is to start with 2 vectors and the angle between them. That is what we considered previously. Now here, because regular arrangement of the atoms exhibit translation symmetry, we can begin with a unit mesh, keep on repeating it either in 2-dimensional plane or even in 3 dimension. Then this will also enable you to know the positions of the atoms. This is what we mean by translation symmetry. So I hope you are able to understand what is the meaning of translation symmetry. It's nothing but it is just repetition over a plane that will render you the lattice. So repetition over a dimension, maybe 2 dimension, 3 dimension, it will ultimately give you the lattice plane, that is ultimately give you the position of the atoms. So you can start with unit mesh and then construct the entire arrangement of the atoms. So you can start with a given local arrangement and then you can construct, or you can identify the entire arrangement of the atoms just by repeating it. This is possible because of the translation symmetry. So other symmetry. So here what we are considering is a square crystal. Maybe you can try this for, I don't know, rectangle, it's also possible, parallelogram is possible. So all you need to do is just repeat the unit mesh and ultimately you will be able to identify, or you will be able to construct the position of the atoms in a given crystal. The other symmetry that is possible when a material exhibits a long range regular arrangement of the atoms is the reflection or a mirror symmetry. So translation symmetry, it involves the repetition. In case of reflection symmetry, when you consider the local arrangement of the atoms, that is what we termed as motif here, when you consider a local arrangement of the atoms, so and when you place a mirror in specific planes, you will notice that certain section of the local arrangement is the mirror image of the other. So let me repeat. In case of reflection symmetry or the mirror symmetry, we need to consider a local arrangement of the atoms, a motif, a unit mesh. If you consider a unit mesh and place a mirror in a definite plane, the section of the mirror will be the mirror image of the rest. So in that case, what we are observing is a reflection symmetry or a mirror symmetry. So let us now see what this mirror or this reflection symmetry mean in different configurations that we have considered so far. We have seen different unit meshes, and we have seen that repetition of this unit meshes will using the translation symmetry of this unit meshes, or using the repetition of this unit meshes, we will be able to build an entire crystal. So since these unit meshes are the fundamental motif for the regular arrangement of the atom, let us now restrict our understanding to this unit meshes and see how does this unit mesh help us understand the reflection symmetry. So what are the reflection symmetries exhibited by the unit mesh? So to begin with, let us consider the square mesh that we started our discussion with. So this is a square mesh. It is characterized by the equivalence in the magnitude of the vectors, and the angle between them is 90 degrees. Now, if we place a mirror in this plane here, then this region here is the mirror image of this other region. So by placing the mirror here in this plane, we are now distinguishing or separating a given unit mesh into two, and this region here, the one, is the mirror image of the two here. So that means if you just look into it closely, and if you just you are able to imagine the mirror image or the reflection of this one on this mirror here, then this two region is nothing but the mirror region image of this one here. So it's nothing but, even if we don't have this region 2, if we start with this region 1 alone, if we start with region 1 alone, what mirror or rather what the reflection symmetry means is that we just start with the region 1, we are just starting with atom 1, or rather atom A and atom A prime. So we are just starting with, instead of considering the whole of the unit mesh, we are just starting with atom A and atom A prime, and instead of doing any translation symmetry or anything, we are just placing a mirror here and identifying its image, and then realizing what the mirroring or the image or the reflection of this atom A and A prime looks like, and then based on its reflection we are placing two more atoms here and here. So we are placing these atoms here and here based on the reflection that is rendered by atom A and A prime. So we are just considering initially A and A prime, placing a mirror here, and then we are determining its reflection, we are understanding its reflection. Based on the understanding of the reflection, we are placing two other atoms in this regions, that is A bar and A bar prime. And now when we connect this, we see that it is indicative of the unit mesh that we have previously considered. So what we mean by that is, for this plane here, the square mesh exhibits a reflection symmetry. A section of the square mesh is the mirror image of the other. So therefore, if we consider just a section alone, by considering its mirror image, we will be able to complete the entire square mesh as we have seen here. So this is what we mean by reflection symmetry. So in case of reflection symmetry, the given square mesh can be split into two by placing a mirror in a particular plane, and if we do that, the one section will be the mirror image of the other. So section 2 will be the mirror image of the section 1. So this means I can get rid of section 2, start with section 1 alone, and then reconstruct the entire square mesh. So that is what we mean by a reflection symmetry. Now, in addition to this plane, I can also consider my plane in this direction. I can get rid of this red plane or this red mirror and place a new blue mirror in this plane or in this direction. So even if I do that, this section here is the mirror image of this section here. So again, in addition to one plane, it is also possible for me to place the mirror on another plane and get the similar symmetry. So I can get rid of, so this plane here, I can get rid of the red one, and then I can just consider the blue one, and ultimately it will also give me a mirror image symmetry, a reflection symmetry. So I have one plane that is red wherein I can place my mirror, and apart from that I can also place my mirror in the blue plane that will also give me reflection symmetry. You can think of another plane wherein you can place the mirror and obtain the reflection symmetry, and that other plane is along the diagonals. So you can place your mirror in this direction as well and obtain the reflection symmetry. So this is what we mean by reflection symmetry, that is one section of the unit mesh will be the mirror image of the other, and when such a symmetry is exhibited by a given unit mesh, then we refer to that as the reflection symmetry. So we say that that material exhibit a reflection symmetry. Now let us move on to, so far what we have considered is just a square mesh. So before winding up our discussion on the symmetry, let us consider one more mesh in addition to the square mesh and see how that particular arrangement of the atom or how that unit mesh shows or exhibits the reflection symmetry. Is there any difference? So for that, let us consider a simple one wherein the atoms are arranged, or the vectors that determine the position of the atoms, the magnitude of the vectors are not equal, but angle between them still remains to be 90 degrees. So in that case, what we have is a rectangular mesh. So now let us consider a rectangular mesh, a rectangular unit mesh, and let's see what is the reflection symmetry that this particular rectangular mesh exhibits. So for that, again, let us begin with by positioning the mirror in a given plane and see if this section here, that is section 1, is the mirror image of the section 2. So in order to find that, all you need to consider is if we consider exactly, or if we place the plane exactly at the midpoint, and if these two are in the straight line and the distance between them are equal, and if you assume that, you will be able to observe that these two sections are mirror image of each other. So there is no problem saying that along this plane, this particular mesh exhibits a reflection symmetry. So what we are doing is, instead of considering a square mesh, we are considering a rectangular mesh, and all we are doing is placing a mirror in a given plane, and we are seeing if this section 1 here with these two atoms is the mirror image of the section 2. We see, and it is easy for, or we can look into it a little bit close and understand as this is a mirror image, the 1 is a mirror image of 2. So that means when you place the mirror in this plane, this particular mesh exhibits a reflection symmetry. So when you place the mirror in this plane, this particular mesh, the rectangular mesh, exhibits a reflection symmetry. Now we will place the mirror in a different plane. So we will again consider a rectangular mesh, and now instead of placing the mirror in the vertical direction, let us now place the mirror in the horizontal direction, exactly passing through the midpoint of this the distance between the atom here. And we will also if you just take some moments, take some time, look into it, you will also find that this section 3 is the mirror image of the section 4. So what it means is, in addition to placing the mirror horizontally, even if you place the mirror, or rather in addition to placing mirror vertically, even if you place the mirror horizontally, the rectangular mesh exhibits a reflection symmetry or a mirror symmetry. So this is what we observed in the square mesh as well. Now the third arrangement or third placement of the mirror that we considered for the square mesh was, the mirror is now being placed along the diagonals. So let us do the same for the rectangular mesh. Now instead of placing it horizontally or vertically, we are placing it along the diagonal. Now we will consider the mirror image of this section here, that is section, let us say 5. Now if you consider the mirror image of this atom here, let us highlight this atom or this entity as blue. If you consider this mirror image, it will not fall here, but rather it will, so it should be equidistant, the mirror image should be equidistant. So if you consider this distance to be d, the mirror image should also be in a distance d. So this would be its distance, rather this would be its distance, and it will be along the straight line. So the mirror image of this atom or this entity would be here. So ideally, so in the rectangular mesh, the entities are present here, 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 and here. But if you place the mirror along the diagonal, and then if you consider the mirror image of this section here, we notice that in this case we do not observe a reflection symmetry. So let me repeat, in all these cases, when we place the mirror vertically or horizontally, the sections were the mirror image of each other. However, when you place the mirror along the diagonal, you will notice that the atom or the entity here will not exhibit a reflection symmetry, because the reflection of this atom here or this entity here will not coincide with the position of the atom here. It coincides, or it rather produces a different position. And if you use the vectors that we know and relate the reflective image or the image that we, or the position that we get from reflection, you would have a different configuration to the unit mesh. So let me repeat. You are now considering or placing the mirror along the diagonal, and now you are taking the reflection of this particular entity here, or let us assume this is an atom, we are taking the reflection of this atom here. So the reflection should be equidistant from the mirror that you have placed, that is D, and it should be in the opposite side vertically, or it should be in the direct opposite. It should be directly opposite to this original position here. So when you consider the equidistance D and place it direct in a position which is directly opposite to this position here, you would end up with a position like this. And when you drop the vectors, you would find that this particular arrangement of the atom is different from the rectangular square mesh that we began with. So it means along the diagonal, this particular unit mesh will not exhibit reflection symmetry. So what we did is we compared the reflection symmetry in square and in rectangular unit meshes. We saw in a square unit mesh, the reflection symmetry is observed horizontally, vertically, and also in the diagonal, and also diagonally. However, when we move away from square mesh to a rectangular mesh, we saw that the reflection symmetry is observed only vertically and horizontally. When you consider diagonally, the diagonal reflection does not coincide with the rectangular mesh. The diagonal reflection, it offers a different arrangement of the atoms. So that means the rectangular mesh does not exhibit the reflection symmetry when you assume the mirror to be along the diagonals. So the rectangular mesh is do not exhibit the reflection symmetry diagonally. So the planes wherein the reflection symmetry is observed, we refer to them as mirror planes. So for a given mesh, the planes wherein the reflection symmetry is observed, we refer to them as mirror planes. In case of rectangular mesh, only horizontal and, or rather vertical and horizontal are the mirror planes. Diagonal is not a mirror plane. However, if you consider square, horizontal, vertical, and diagonal, all these are mirror planes. So what we need to understand here is, depending on the arrangement of the atoms, depending on the unit mesh, how the configuration of the atom is locally, depending on the unit mesh, the reflection symmetry, it varies. So we have just compared square and rectangle. You can extend this to parallelogram and also hexagon as well, and you will realize that depending on the unit mesh, the reflection symmetry or the symmetry, the mirror symmetry exhibited by the arrangement of the atom, it varies. Now what we have so far considered is, we have considered translation symmetry and reflection symmetry. The one other symmetry that we need to know is, or that is exhibited by the regular arrangement of the atom, is the rotation symmetry. So far what we have considered is translation and reflection. Now the final symmetry that we need to understand is, or that is prevalent when you have regular arrangement of the atom, is the rotation symmetry. In some sense, the rotation symmetry is also in a way related to the translation symmetry. In translation symmetry, all you would be doing is, you would be replacing, or you would be repeating a given local arrangement of the atoms, which we call as motif, and you would be repeating all through the volume. So in a 2-dimension, you will be repeating all through the plane, and you will ultimately end up with the lattice plane. In case of rotation symmetry, you will have to achieve the same lattice plane, but now instead of directly translating it, instead of directly replicating its position, or instead of directly repeating this particular motif, you will rotate it and you will repeat it. Even after this rotation, you should be able to achieve the regular arrangement of the atom. You should be able to achieve the lattice plane. So when you are able to do that, then it means that that particular arrangement of the atom exhibits a rotational symmetry. So it may repeat. So in case of translation symmetry, you consider a motif, a unit mesh, and then you keep on repeating this unit mesh. And when you do that, what essentially would happen is you would ultimately end up with the lattice plane. So you begin with a regular arrangement of the atom locally, you repeat it, you just keep on repeating it, you keep on translating it, and when you do that, you end up with the entire lattice plane. So that is what we mean by translation symmetry. Now in case of rotation symmetry, what we mean is instead of directly translating it, instead of directly repeating it, we rotate a given a local arrangement that we have considered, and then after rotating we place it nearby. So we rotate it, place it nearby, rotate it, place it nearby, and rotate it, place it nearby. And if even after rotating it, if we are able to establish the arrangement of the atoms in a given lattice plane, if we are able to establish the lattice plane, then it means that particular motif or that particular unit mesh exhibits the rotational symmetry. So this is, in addition to the translation symmetry and refraction symmetry, this is one other symmetry that we can observe when we are talking about the regular arrangement of the atoms. In order to briefly understand this rotational symmetry, like the reflection symmetry, we will begin with considering the simplest square mesh. So if when we do that, so let us begin by considering a square mesh. So let us draw a simple square mesh. Now in this square mesh, let us assume one of the entity is red, so that we will be able to identify its rotation. So now if we rotate this, say for 90 degrees, then the position of this particular atom will be here. So when we rotate it by 90 degrees, what we would end up with is something like this. Now please understand that all these entities, they might have similar they might be of similar elements, similar ions, they might be of different ions. So we are considering just for our discussion just a two-dimensional square mesh, and we are just rotating this. So we have now rotated by 90 degrees, and when we keep on doing that, we need to have, when we rotate it by another 90 degree, the position of this red ion or atom will be here, and when we again rotate it by another 90 degrees, the position of the red ion or the atom will be here, and when we do another rotation, the position of this red ion will go back to its original one. So it will be 1, 2, 3, or rather let me use a different color. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and again 1, because we have got back to our original position of the ions. So we have got back to our original position. So we began with a configuration like this. We rotated this configuration by 90 degrees, then the position of the atom moved here. Again we rotated it by 90 degrees. So the position of the red atom was, we rotated by 90 degrees, the position of the red atom was here. We again rotated it by 90 degrees, so it moved from here to here. So that is what we see here. And then we again rotated it. So the position of the atom from here moved to here, and we rotated it by 90 degrees, so ultimately it got back to its original position. So when we do 4 rotations of 90 degrees each, we were able to get back to our original arrangement of the atoms. So then the square mesh exhibits, so this is what we mean by the rotational symmetry, and more specifically, since rotating it 4 times by 90 degrees help us get back to our original position, we refer to that as 4-fold symmetry. So we are talking in terms of rotational symmetry. This particular square mesh, it exhibits the rotational symmetry, and what is the specific rotational symmetry it exhibits is that it exhibits 4-fold rotational symmetry. And how do we know that it exhibits 4-fold rotational symmetry? Because we know when we rotate this square mesh here 4 times, we will get back to our original position. So if I am starting with this configuration here, I am having a red atom. When I rotate it for the first time by 90 degrees, my first position will be here. The second 90 degrees, my position will be here. The third 90 degrees, my position will be here. And finally, when I reach the fourth rotation, the outcome of the fourth rotation will be my original configuration. So that means my square mesh exhibits a four-fold symmetry. Now let us consider the rectangular mesh. So if I consider the rectangular mesh of similar to what we have considered, or rather we will make it more explicitly as rectangle. So if I consider rectangular mesh, now if I do a rotation by 90 degrees, if I do a 90 degrees rotation, pardon me. So if I do a rotation by 90 degrees, then the overall configuration or the arrangement of the atom, it changes entirely. So what I mean by that is, then when I rotate it by 90 degrees, my configuration of the unit mesh will be something like this. The configuration or the arrangement of the atoms will be something like this. So this is no longer a rotational symmetry because the overall configuration has changed. However, when I add to it another rotation by 90 degrees, then I will have a similar configuration. I will get back to the original rectangular mesh, which is of this form. So now I know that a 90-degree rotation for a rectangular mesh will destroy the configuration that we have. They destroy the configuration or the arrangement of the atoms. Therefore, instead of 190 degrees, I have to have two rotations of 90 degrees. So I have to have a rotation of 180 degrees in order to maintain my regular rectangular mesh. So when I do that, this is the position of the or this is the configuration of the rotated rectangular mesh, and this is the position of the red ion. And now when I do another 180 degree rotation, I will get back to my original configuration and original position of the red ion. So in case of the rectangular symmetry, we need to understand that a 90 degree rotation will distort the configuration of the rectangular mesh. It will change the configuration of the rectangular mesh. It will instead of pointing in the horizontal direction, now it will point in the vertical direction. So that means we have distorted the configuration of the rectangular mesh. However, instead of 90 degrees, when we do two 90 degrees rotation, then we will resume our rectangular mesh configuration. However, the position of the red ion would be different. Now when we do another 180 degree rotation, we will get back to our original position. So we need two rotations of 180 degrees to get back to our original position. So that means the rectangular mesh, it exhibits two-fold symmetry. Now you can try to do the similar operation for a parallelogram, and you will realize that even a parallelogram, it exhibits a two-fold symmetry. And the one interesting aspect is you can try the same for the hexagonal arrangement, and you will find that the hexagonal arrangement, it exhibits a six-fold symmetry. Now we have seen 5 different unit meshes: square, rectangle, centered rectangle, parallelogram and hexagon. So centered and primitive rectangle, they exhibit two-fold symmetry because the internal configuration is the same. The square, we saw that it exhibits four-fold symmetry. So it will be helpful for you to understand the symmetry to work on parallelogram and the hexagon. So unfortunately, we don't have sufficient time to talk about the three-dimensional now. I hope you are able to at least understand the basics of the symmetry that we observe, the different symmetries that we observe in the minerals, because these symmetry arise exclusively because we have regular arrangement of the atoms or ions in the crystals. So regular arrangement of the atoms and ions in the crystal consequently leads to or introduces symmetry, and we saw there are 3 symmetries that are possible, or 3 different symmetries can be observed. One is translation, and we saw there is a reflection or a mirror symmetry, and finally we also saw that we have rotation symmetry, and each of these symmetry, it varies between, or it varies with the local arrangement, it varies with the configuration. The square symmetry is not similar to that of the rectangular symmetry. We will see the 3-dimensional understanding of it, or 3-dimensional extrapolation of this in the next lecture. Goodbye.